On the night of December 29, 1980, Betty Cash, Vickie Landrum, and Colby encountered a flaming, diamond-shaped object, a UAP. The consequences of the radiation from this encounter were immediate. Vomiting, diarrhea, hair loss, a $20 million lawsuit against the American government, humiliation, public distrust, and one of the best documented cases of an encounter with a UAP. Tuesday, it was a cloudy night. Betty Cash, 51, was driving her car on a deserted road with her friend, Vickie Landrum, 57, and her grandson, Colby, 7. When they saw an intense light above the trees, they thought it was a plane since they were 35 miles from an airport. But as they approached, the object descended rapidly, flying above the road, blocking their path. The object looked like a silvery diamond. It was 30 to 40 meters long. It had a small ring of blue lights in the middle. The bottom emitted intense cones of fire with the sound of flamethrowers. They smelled something similar to lighter fluid. The heat emitted by the craft was so intense that Betty stopped the car 39 meters from the object. The heat was so intense that the interior of the car felt like an oven. Betty and Vickie got out of the car to investigate, but Colby screamed and Vickie went to help her grandson. When she touched the car, the vinyl sank in, as if it were modeling clay, leaving a mark. Betty stayed outside longer, mesmerized by the sight. When she tried to get back into the car, she burned her hand on the door handle. She used her coat and got into the car. While Betty was outside the car, she witnessed a group of 23 Boeing CH-47 military helicopters surround the object and follow it in formation as it left the ground. What makes this case so interesting is that there were other witnesses besides Betty's group, such as Detective Lamar Walker, who was traveling with his wife on the 29th and reported seeing a formation of 23 helicopters near where Betty was. Although he did not see the craft, this account proves that it was not a local hallucination in Betty's group. According to a publication by APRO Bulletin, one of the most reputable UFO research organizations, some of the helicopters returned to the location a few hours later. What were they looking for? Victims or equipment? The effects of the radiation emitted by the UAP were immediate and devastating. Shortly after Betty's group returned home, they experienced intense sunburn, thirst, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Betty suffered the worst effects. On the morning of December 30th, her skin was bright red and covered in blisters. She had a high fever and a burning sensation in her eyes. On January 3, 1981, she was debilitated and she was admitted to Parkway Hospital in Houston, where she stayed for 6 weeks. During this time, she lost half of her hair and the skin on her face began to peel. Doctors called their case a textbook case of radiation poisoning. Over the next few years, their lives were drastically affected. Betty suffered from multiple cancers and frequent hospitalizations until her death on December 29, 1998, from a stroke. Vickie had cataracts and a low white blood cell count. Colby had an immune deficiency and chronic weakness. The scientific community has been debating the cause of the radiation effects on the victims for a long time, since the dose of ionizing radiation necessary for immediate effects is lethal to 50% of victims within 60 days without intensive medical treatment such as bone marrow transplantation. But they lived for decades, leading some critics to say that it was high-intensity microwave radiation and not ionizing radiation. However, this theory fails to explain the suppression of bone marrow, which is specific to ionizing radiation. According to investigators, some of her medical papers disappeared. Was this a cover-up? The Boeing CH-47 helicopters are transport helicopters. They are not fast enough to pursue a UFO. If it really was a UFO, the logical action would be to send fighter jets like the F-15 or the F-4 Phantom II, proving that it was a planned operation, not an unexpected encounter. Furthermore, according to Visit, a group of researchers that included NASA scientists, the helicopters maintained a distance of between 3.4 and 1 mile from the UAP, proving it was an escort mission, meaning they knew what it was and its danger. With all this, it is easy and logical to conclude that the UAP was actually a defective, top-secret military prototype of a nuclear-powered aircraft. Other facts that support this theory are that during the 1950s and 60s, the American government spent billions of dollars on projects such as the ANP nuclear propulsion aircraft and the NERVA nuclear engine for rocket vehicle application program. Although these programs were canceled, they continued under various obscure government budgets. Another fact is that for that craft to generate effects such as softening the car's vinyl and leaving burn marks on the road, the craft would have to operate between megawatts and gigawatts, which is compatible with the theoretical requirements for nuclear thermal propulsion systems. In August 1981, Betty Cash initiated legal proceedings against the American government, seeking $20 million in damages. But the American government, fearing the reaction of political opponents inside and outside the United States, as well as the reaction of the American population upon learning of a nuclear accident in an urban area, denied the accusations. They said there was no helicopter mission at the accident site and denied that the prototype existed. The most important evidence, the medical papers that would prove that radiation was the cause of the victim's effects, disappeared. Therefore, on August 21, 1986, a U.S. District Court judge dismissed the case, arguing that the victims failed to prove the American government's guilt. The government managed to obscure the case due to lack of evidence. Despite all the evidence, all the marks and scars, the victims were humiliated by the media as just another case of UFO fanatics. The video is over. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. Check out the pinned comment, and I'll see you in the next video.